The night tasted like rain and fear. Not the kind that screams, the kind that whispers quietly, like fate already made its choice and was only waiting for you to realize it. The street was empty, slick with water glistening like broken glass. City lights blurred into gold and red streaks as she knelt on the pavement, her breath trembling, her palms soaked, not just from rain, but from the warm crimson spreading across his shirt, his blood. Her voice quivered. "Stay with me. Please." He cupped her cheek with a hand heavy and shaking. The world around them roared, sirens in the distance, thunder rolling like a warning, headlights slicing through darkness. But he only looked at her, as if nothing else existed, as if she was the last safe thing left on earth. His thumb brushed her lower lip, slow, possessive, tender. "From the moment you kissed me," he whispered, breath uneven, eyes burning into hers, "you became mine." Lightning cracked above them. She shook her head, heart collapsing and rebuilding in a single beat. "Don't say that. Don't." He exhaled a broken laugh, soft and knowing. Not desperate, not afraid. Surrendering. "I told you," he murmured, voice fading. "I would never let you go." And then his hand slipped from her cheek. Her world shattered with the weight of that touch leaving her skin. Like the entire universe exhaled grief. She screamed his name, raw, fierce, helpless. The rain swallowed it whole. Sunlight, warm, safe, too innocent for the future that waited. Her laughter carried across a street lined with small cafes and old bookstores. She hugged her coat too, her chest walking fast, late for work, hair messy, heart tired, dreams quietly stitched together by stubborn hope. A normal girl in a normal world. She never knew darkness was already watching her. He leaned against a sleek black car across the street, suit fitting like a second skin. Eyes hidden behind dark lenses, jaw set with that still, dangerous silence of a man who didn't need to speak to be obeyed. But when he saw her, he did something unusual. He breathed just a little deeper, just once, as if real life had just brushed past him in a crowded world. She didn't see him. Not yet, but fate did. Destiny has a way of turning its head when two souls have been chosen to collide. He watched her fumble with her coffee cup, muttering to herself as a bus splash nearly soaked her shoes. She rolled her eyes, shook her head, and kept walking, stubborn and sweet and unaware of how soft she seemed to a man who had forgotten softness existed. His phone buzzed. "Sir, they're waiting inside," a voice said. He didn't move. He just watched her disappear around the corner, something tight, foreign, flickering in his chest. That was the thing about powerful men. They don't fall in love. But sometimes love finds them anyway. Disguised as curiosity, as distraction, as an innocent woman brushing the edge of their world without knowing she'd just stepped into its center. He murmured low, mostly to himself, "Interesting." Her world was quiet. His world was chaos. She fought life. He conquered it. But love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't knock. It breaks in. Silent first, then all at once. Before the first kiss, she was just a woman. After it, she would be the only thing his heart answered to. And the man people feared, the name that made shadows straighten and silence bow, would become something terrifying. A lover willing to burn the world, to keep his one miracle alive. She didn't know fate had marked her. She didn't know love had teeth. All she knew in that moment was sunlight, coffee, her messy plans, and the illusion of peace. Because somewhere behind her, a man who didn't believe in softness had just found a reason to. And soon, their worlds would collide. Their hearts would break and rebuild. And that first kiss, that stolen moment meant only to be a spark, would become a wildfire too powerful for either of them to ever escape. Not that he would ever allow escape. Not after that kiss. Not after her. Fate rarely arrives with thunder. Sometimes it slips in like sunlight through curtains. Soft, unnoticed, till it's everywhere. She didn't wake that morning knowing her life had already been kissed by destiny. She simply stretched, rubbed sleepy eyes, and stared at her ceiling with a quiet sigh. A good sigh, a hopeful one. "Today will be better," she whispered. Like a promise to herself she wasn't sure she believed. She brewed coffee in her tiny kitchen. The mug chipped, the counter cluttered with half-read books and scribbled notes. A life small in space, but big in dreams she didn't say out loud anymore. She was ordinary. At least, she thought she was. Across the city, power woke differently. A heavy door opened. Steel security. dark floors that reflected light like a warning. Men waited for him, the kind who hid fear in their posture and respect in silence. But he did not speak to them. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Quiet, commanding, carved from danger and discipline. He moved like someone the world made room for. Yet that morning, he paused, a coffee cup on his table, untouched, rare. He never forgot anything. Annoyance flickered. Why was she still in his mind? He remembered the way her fingers trembled around that paper cup yesterday, the way she muttered to herself as if she didn't know anyone was watching, the softness she carried without meaning to. Strange how innocence could hold a room more powerfully than fear. He had seen queens, killers, and gold-draped liars, but nothing disarmed him like the memory of her frustrated sigh. He didn't know her name. But something in his world had already shifted, a tiny misalignment in gravity. And men like him did not believe in coincidence. She stepped into the crisp morning wind, coat wrapped tightly around her, hair dancing wildly. She walked fast, not running from life, but chasing something she still didn't have words for. The city woke around her. Honking taxis, murmured greetings, coffee shops alive with morning chaos. Yet she felt something different, a prickle along her skin, a sense she was being seen, even when the street seemed empty. Ridiculous, she told herself. No one notices you like that, but sometimes the universe notices before people do. She brushed the feeling off and kept walking. The bookstore cafe came into view, windows fogged, the smell of pastries drifting out like comfort, her sanctuary. A black car pulled up across the street. He stepped out, silence in motion, presence in place of noise. His men waited inside the car, watching, understanding he didn't like being followed in moments like this. Moments where something mattered. He scanned the street, not for threats, for her. He didn't have to wait long. She appeared, hair messy from the wind, cheeks flushed from the morning chill, the kind of beauty that didn't announce itself, but lingered. She almost tripped on the curb. He almost smirked, almost. She crossed the street hugging a notebook to her chest, dreams written inside, fears tucked between lines. He let his gaze follow her, but his body didn't move. He stayed hidden in shadows and tinted glass, yet felt closer to her than he ever had to any elegant woman who walked willingly into his arms. She didn't know him. And somehow, that made her more dangerous than every enemy he'd ever faced. She stopped suddenly, as if she felt something. A pull, an unseen gravity. She looked around, eyes searching, almost finding him. His breath stilled. For a second, just one, the world narrowed to the space between their unseen stare. A tether formed, thin and fragile like silk. Then someone inside the cafe called her name, and she turned, smiling, the kind of smile that shouldn't exist in a world as brutal as his. She disappeared inside. He watched the door close. Something inside his chest tightened. Not painfully, strangely. Curiosity had teeth, and it had already bitten. He murmured to himself, voice low, dangerous, almost reverent. If fate wants to play, I won't lose. But fate wasn't playing. It had already chosen. And slowly, quietly, the pull between them grew. Gentle, inevitable, unstoppable. Two lives still separate. Two hearts already leaning. Two worlds about to collide not by accident, but by destiny. This wasn't love yet. It was the beginning of gravity. And nothing escapes gravity. Not even him. Not even her. Not even fate itself. They say most collisions hurt, but some change everything. The night breathed softly around me. Warm lights glowing through city windows. Soft music floating from passing cars. The quiet hum of life moving unaware of what was about to happen. I wasn't looking for fate. I wasn't even thinking about destiny. I was thinking about getting home, showering, and pretending today hadn't shaken me more than I cared to admit. I pushed open the door of the hotel, stepping out into the soft night breeze, and walked straight into someone. Solid, warm, tall. A presence like a wall and a gravity well all at once. My breath stumbled before I did. Large hands closed around my arms. Steady, secure, claiming without trying. My eyes flew up instinctively, and suddenly every sound around us faded. It was him. That same man from earlier. The one whose gaze felt like it unraveled something inside me I didn't even know was wound tight. Only now. We were too close. His cologne hit first. Dark, subtle, clean. The kind of scent worn by men who don't need to announce power. They just are power. His jaw was inches from mine, sharp and strong. His breath ghosted my cheek, and those eyes. Storm dark, steady, unreadable, but softer this time. Curious, warm around the edges, like he recognized me too. Or maybe I just wanted him to. I'm sorry, I whispered, losing my voice halfway through. His hands didn't immediately leave. He held me just a heartbeat longer than necessary, as if checking I was real, as if grounding himself, or me. You should watch where you're going. His voice was low, smooth, the kind that didn't need volume to command, a voice meant to be listened to. Normally I would have snapped back, pride sharpened like armor. But with him, my tongue forgot how to fight. I didn't see you, I finally managed. He raised a brow, not mocking, interested, almost amused. Most people do. A pulse ran down my spine. He released me slowly, fingers sliding from my arms like he hadn't decided whether to let go or hold on. When he stepped back, I felt the absence of his touch like sudden cold. I shouldn't feel that. I didn't even know him, except my body disagreed. My heart, too. His gaze swept over my face with the kind of attention that wasn't rude. It was deliberate. He was storing details. He wanted to remember. You look unsettled, he murmured. I'm not. I was. His lips curved slightly. Not a smile. More like a man who caught a truth he wasn't supposed to see. Don't lie, he said softly. Not accusing, almost protective. I didn't answer. Couldn't. He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle with edges he already recognized. You shouldn't wander alone this late. I can handle myself. Some people think they can, he replied slowly, until they meet someone who proves otherwise. My breath trembled. Not from fear. From the way he said someone, danger didn't feel dangerous with him. It felt inevitable, magnetic. Stepping closer was the only thing that made sense, even if logic begged otherwise. But instead, I did the safe thing. I stepped back, except he watched that step like it meant something. Distance was a decision, and decisions mattered. Then he spoke again, gentler this time, like velvet wrapped around steel. Be careful, not a warning. A promise disguised as one. Before I could reply, a black car rolled to the curb. A man in a suit rushed out, opening the door with practiced urgency. He didn't move at first, didn't break eye contact. Something unspoken passed between us. A recognition neither of us asked for, but both felt. Finally, he turned toward the car. But halfway in, he paused. What's your name? He asked without looking back. I hesitated, not out of fear, but because something about giving him my name felt like handing over a piece of myself. Elena, I breathed. His jaw tightened, subtle, like the name meant something already. Then he looked over his shoulder, eyes catching mine again. I'm Cairo. It fit him. Strong, quiet, dangerous. And then, just as suddenly as he entered my night, he disappeared inside the car, and it pulled away. But I didn't move. I just stood there, heart beating too fast, breath stuck somewhere between fear and longing. I didn't know him. He didn't know me, but something had shifted. Something I couldn't explain. Something neither of us could undo now. A collision. A spark. A beginning written before either of us walked into it. And in the soft hum of the city, I felt it. This wasn't the last time I'd see him. Fate wasn't finished with us yet. Not even close. Some nights refuse to fade. Some moments replay themselves until sleep gives up trying to claim you. I thought when I got home, I would forget him, that mysterious man with eyes like dark fire, and a voice that wrapped around my heartbeat like silk over steel. But I didn't sleep. Not even close. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his hand on my arm, felt the warmth of his hold, heard that low warning in his voice. Be careful. He had said it like a man who didn't offer advice, only protection. Who was he? Why did a stranger's touch feel like gravity? Why did my chest ache in a way I couldn't explain? I wasn't supposed to feel anything. I wasn't looking for anything. And men like him, they weren't meant to slip into ordinary lives like mine. But he had. And now everything felt slightly out of place, as if the world had tilted after colliding with his. I lay awake for hours, thinking about a man whose name I barely knew. Cairo. Even his name felt dangerous. I whispered it once. Quietly, like tasting a secret no one should hear. And something in my chest tightened. Across the city, inside a penthouse of glass and midnight steel, he wasn't sleeping either. A man like him should have been reviewing deals, giving orders, running empires in silence. Instead, he stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, jaw set, drink untouched, eyes lost in the city lights like they owed him answers. "You've been quiet since the hotel," one of his men dared to comment. He didn't turn, didn't blink. His voice came low, flat, almost irritated at himself, not them. "A woman ran into me." Silence. That wasn't normal for him. Nothing random stayed in his thoughts. He didn't do accidents. He didn't believe in chance. "Do we need to find her?" his man asked carefully, his jaw flexed, a single muscle betraying him. "No." But the hesitation was there. A pause sharp enough to cut air. "She'll cross my path again." He said it like fact. Fate wasn't wishful. It was obedient. Guy was already written in his story, and he was simply waiting for the page to turn. He didn't chase. He didn't need to, yet all night. His fingers unconsciously curled as if remembering the shape of my arm. His mind replayed my startled breath, the softness in my voice, the innocence he hadn't expected in a world made of shadows. And somewhere deep inside the man feared by the city, a spark, unwelcome but undeniable, refused to extinguish. Morning came slow, gray and soft. I stared at my reflection as sunlight climbed my bedroom wall. "You're being ridiculous," I whispered to myself. It was just a bump into, just a look, just a spark I shouldn't be thinking about. So why did it feel like the world had changed its rhythm? Why did my heart feel like it was waiting for something? Then my phone pinged, a reminder about work. Real life calling me back. I forced a breath, brushed my hair, and stepped outside. Fresh air. New day. I could move on. I would move on. Except destiny isn't a door you close. It's a road you find yourself walking whether you agreed to or not. And as I crossed the same hotel lobby again that morning, envelope in hand, pretending not to feel anything, the receptionist leaned in slightly and whispered, "He was asking if you'd come back today." My heartbeat stopped, just for a second, just long enough to feel the world shift under my feet again. I didn't ask who she meant. I already knew. Some collisions don't end the moment. Bodies move apart. Some begin right there, and mine had only just begun. Sometimes protection doesn't arrive with noise. Sometimes it moves in shadows. Silent, unseen, but unmistakably present. I didn't expect to see anything unusual that day. It was supposed to be simple. Deliver documents, get coffee, head to work. Pretend last night didn't change the rhythm of my heartbeat. Pretend I didn't feel watched. Not in fear, but in the strange, unsettling way where a presence lingers in memory long after it's gone. Cairo. His name still echoed in my mind like a secret I wasn't supposed to know. I tried to shake it off, stepping out of the hotel into the morning air, and froze. A black car idled across the street, windows tinted, engine humming low, still, waiting, not moving. Not threatening, just there, watching. My stomach tightened, but not in panic. In certainty, it wasn't coincidence. Nothing about him felt accidental. I turned away, pretending not to notice, because acknowledging it out loud would mean accepting something had changed, that someone I'd met only once was still around me, still aware of me, still interested. I ordered my drink, trying to settle my nerves. The soft clink of cups, the smell of roasted beans, normalcy wrapped in comfort, except normal never felt so fragile. I paid, stepped aside, and waited. My hand trembled slightly. Why? I didn't know. Or maybe I did. I wasn't scared. That was the part that terrified me most. I went to reach for my phone, and someone bumped my shoulder. Hard. A man. Rushed. Distracted. Or pretending to be. My bag fell. My papers scattered. Before I could bend, he stepped forward aggressively, voice sharp. "You should watch where—" He never finished, because suddenly he froze, eyes locked on something behind me. His face drained pale, like he'd seen a ghost. He muttered an apology so fast it almost broke his tongue, then fled, out the door like his life depended on it. Confused, I turned. 2 men stood outside the cafe window. Black suits, silent, unmoving, not staring at me. My heart stuttered. They weren't random security. They weren't here for the cafe. They weren't here for anyone else. They were his. Even without seeing him, I felt the truth settle in the air. Cairo didn't ask if I came back to the hotel because he was curious. He asked because he already knew, because he was already paying attention, because he didn't leave things to chance, especially people who touched something inside him. I walked carefully, aware yet pretending not to be. A quiet hum followed me, a presence I couldn't name but felt. Every time someone passed too close, a shadow shifted behind me. Every time a car slowed near the curb, another car moved into place. No words. No reveal, no confrontation, just silent protection, like the world had grown invisible walls around me, shaped by a man who didn't need permission to guard what mattered to him. And somehow, without meaning to, I had become one of those things. Inside a sleek vehicle not far behind, he sat, not leaning, not relaxed, but watching through the glass as if reading fate in every breath I took. "She needs security?" his driver asked softly. Cairo didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed locked on me, every streetlight reflection, every step, every slight tuck of hair behind my ear. "No," he finally murmured, voice low, unreadable. "She needs space. Pause. And she needs safety. Should we show ourselves?" His fingers tapped once against his knee, thoughtful, patient, dangerous in stillness. Not yet. Then why guard her at all? A beat of silence, thicker than threat, deeper than confession. He looked down, at the faint imprint on his palm, like memory left marks. "Because someone could hurt her," he said quietly, "before she learns what it means to belong to me." Not a vow, not a warning, a truth he had already accepted, even if I hadn't. By the time I reached my office building, I felt it. A warmth under my skin, like invisible hands guiding fate gently forward. I turned one last time. No one was there, nothing visible. But I smiled. Just a little, because some safety doesn't need to be seen to be real. He watched. Somewhere out there, he remembered me, and somewhere far deeper, I realized I didn't want distance anymore. I wanted answers. I wanted presence. I wanted the truth behind the eyes that held mine, like they had known me long before we met, and that scared me more than danger ever could, because this wasn't fate passing by. It was fate waiting, and it wouldn't wait forever. Some meetings feel like accidents. Some feel like destiny. But the rarest ones feel like gravity finally stopping its search. Days passed, yet his presence never truly left. The city moved, people rushed, time flowed, but I lived inside a quiet hum, a knowing feeling in my chest. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't let go. I didn't see him. I didn't hear him, but I felt him. Sometimes safety doesn't wrap around you like arms. It rests around your world like invisible walls only one person can command. And that morning, as I walked toward the hotel again, something inside me whispered, "Today." I didn't know what was coming, but every step felt like a countdown. I placed the envelope at the desk, polite smile practiced, trying to look like someone who belonged here. Then a voice, deep, smooth, unmistakable, floated behind me. "You're early today." My breath caught. Slow, sharp, like my lungs forgot how to work. I turned. He stood just a few steps behind. Dark suit fitted like power. Presence heavy enough to silence air. Not looming, but undeniable. Not claiming space. Owning it, Cairo. He didn't rush closer. Didn't smirk. Didn't pretend last time didn't matter. He simply looked, and I felt seen in a way that made the world shrink to just us. "You noticed?" I managed softly. He didn't blink. Of course, his answer didn't fall. It landed, firm, certain, as if not noticing me was not an option. My pulse fluttered, not out of fear, but the dangerous kind of awareness that comes before something irreversible. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His eyes followed that movement like it mattered. "Do you always watch strangers like that?" I attempted, voice small but trying to steady itself. His jaw flexed, one tiny movement giving him away. "You're not a stranger." The air shifted, deepened. The world quieted, as if waiting for what came next. "I barely know you," I whispered. "Names mean nothing," he replied softly. "Recognition doesn't come from introductions." His eyes searched mine, not invading, not forcing, just reading something only he could interpret. "And when I look at you," his voice lowered, "I don't feel like I should look away. No arrogance, no manipulation, just truth, raw and unpolished. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and feeling wind say, 'Jump not to kill you, but to show you how it feels to fly.' Not too close, just enough that my breath felt shared." "You weren't alone yesterday," I said quietly. He didn't smile, but his gaze warmed by a fraction. "You noticed. You made sure I did." He exhaled once. Soft, controlled. The closest thing to admitting something he didn't plan to reveal. "I don't like unknown risks around you. But you don't even know me." His eyes held mine, steady and unhurried. "I know enough." My voice shook. "What?" That you walk like you don't believe anyone would ever follow you. Pause. That you underestimate the danger in the world, not because you're naive, but because you haven't been protected before. His words were too accurate, too sharp. My throat tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. How long have you been? Since the hotel. He cut gently, not harsh. Sometimes a moment is enough. Something in my chest folded, fragile and warm. Is this normal for you? I whispered. No. His answer came without hesitation. I don't follow people. Silence held us like glass, tense and delicate. Why me? A faint breath escaped him, almost like a confession slipping out before pride could stop it. I wish I knew. The honesty in those 4 words felt like fire on bare skin. He didn't cross the line. He didn't cage or corner. He simply stood there, a man powerful enough to command fear, choosing restraint instead. I should go, I murmured. You can. Not stopping me. Not forcing. Giving freedom like it was a door he trusted me to return through. But, I whispered, breath trembling. His gaze softened. Dangerous only in tenderness. But I won't pretend I didn't see you. Pause. And I won't pretend I can forget. The world blurred. A soft rush of heartbeat. A warmth spreading down my spine. A pull I didn't ask for but couldn't fight. He stepped aside, giving space. Giving choice. And yet his presence wrapped around me as I walked past. I didn't look back. He didn't call out. But as the glass doors opened and the city air hit my skin, one truth settled deep and undeniable. I wasn't walking away. I was being followed by fate. And this time, I wanted it to. The night air outside the restaurant felt different, warmer, heavier, as though the world itself had shifted with that single kiss on her cheek, with that single breath they shared in the quiet hallway moments ago. Isabella walked beside him, not behind, not led, but side by side. Yet she felt caged not by force, but by his presence. By the way, he walked half a step closer to the street, as though a bullet might come from the shadows at any moment, and he was already positioning himself in front of it, protecting her, without asking, without thinking. The instinct of a man who spent a lifetime surviving danger, and maybe for the first time, fearing it not for himself, but for someone else. She felt that weight, that silent vow. His jacket brushed her arm, the slightest movement, yet enough to send a trail of heat up her spine. Neither spoke for a moment. Sometimes silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's overflowing. Finally, she exhaled. You didn't have to walk me out. His eyes lowered to hers, steady, unreadable, dark enough to pull her in like gravity itself. I know, he said quietly. But I wanted to. Wanted. Not needed. Wanted. Her breath stalled for a second. People didn't want her usually. They needed her, tolerated her, used her comfort, her calm, her kindness, until she became convenient to forget. But him, he looked at her like forgetting wasn't possible even if he tried. They reached the curb. A sleek black car waited, the kind driven by men who never lived ordinary lives. One of his bodyguards moved to open the back door, but he lifted a hand in a silent command. The man froze. He turned to Isabella. The street lamp gently cut shadows across his jaw, highlighting the dangerous softness in his expression. You're shaking, he murmured, barely audible. She hadn't realized she was. The buzz of adrenaline, the memory of her ex's mocking voice earlier that night, the closeness of him. I'm fine, she whispered. No, he said quietly. You're pretending. It wasn't criticism, it was recognition. A man who hides his battles doesn't struggle to see another soldier doing the same. He removed his suit jacket, slow, deliberate, and draped it over her shoulders. His scent wrapped around her instantly, warm spice, dark smoke, and something deep she couldn't name but already knew she'd crave again. I don't want you cold, he said. She swallowed. I'm not cold. A ghost of a smirk touched his lips. Maybe not, but I am possessive when it comes to comfort. Possessive. The word didn't frighten her. It anchored her. A car drove by, splashing puddles. Voices echoed down the street. But in that small corner of the night, there were only 2 heartbeats that mattered. Why are you being so kind to me? She asked quietly. He looked away for a moment, toward the city lights. He was searching for the truth instead of crafting it. I don't know, he admitted, unexpected, raw, vulnerable. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, fingers barely touching her skin, reverent, as if she might shatter from too much intention. But when I saw him talk to you the way he did, he continued, Something inside me broke, not rage, not ego, instinct. I don't like someone hurting you, he said softly. I don't think I ever will. Her heart tripped over itself. Why me? She whispered. He stepped just close enough that she could feel his breath fan against her temple. Not kissing. Not yet. But close enough that the air between them felt like thread pulling tight. Because when you walked toward him tonight, you didn't look afraid, he whispered. You looked brave. His voice dropped lower, almost reverent, and brave women deserve to be protected. A soft inhale escaped her. Not weakness, but surrender. Not submission, trust. He didn't cage her. He made the world around her feel safer. Get in the car, he murmured, but gently. I'll make sure you get home safely. She held his gaze, searching, almost testing him. And if I say I don't want to go yet? His breath caught, only noticeable because he rarely faltered. Then, he murmured, voice deep and dangerous in the most beautiful way, we don't go anywhere. The city kept moving. Cars honked. Life rushed around them, but they were still. Two storms choosing peace in each other's silence. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. She felt chosen. This was the night he didn't just protect her, he let something crack open inside him. And whatever light escaped, found her first. Sometimes it isn't silence that fills the air. It's memory. The car door closed behind her with a soft click, and the world outside faded, city noise muffled, streetlights blurring through the tinted glass. Isabella sat in the back seat beside him, his jacket still around her shoulders, drowning her in warmth she didn't know she could crave. He didn't speak at first. Neither did she. There was only the hum of the engine, the steady rhythm of tires on wet streets, and the shared awareness of two hearts trying, quietly, to understand what the other meant. Finally, he broke the silence. You were shaking, he said softly. I'm fine, she murmured again. He turned his head slowly, and she felt his gaze, deep, unblinking, too sharp and too gentle at the same time. Fine doesn't look like that. Not accusing, not intrusive, simply true. Her breath caught. You don't even know me. A pause, a breath, a shift in the air. Maybe not yet, he murmured. But I see you, see her. 2 words. Yet they slammed into the parts of her life where she'd always been invisible, her fingers twisted in the jacket sleeve. And what do you think you see? His answer came without hesitation. A woman who fights alone. His voice was low, steady. A woman who thinks strength means silence. Her chest tightened. He didn't know her past, not really, but somehow he was standing frighteningly close to the truth. He leaned back slightly, resting his arm along the top of the seat, his posture relaxed, but only visually. There was a tension in him, coiled and alert, like he was waiting for something. He was ready to shield her from every ghost she had ever known. Did he hurt you? Almost a whisper. Almost a threat. She didn't answer. Not immediately. Pain has a way of gripping the throat before it ever reaches the tongue. At last, she breathed. He tried. His jaw clenched, a silent, lethal promise forming behind his calm expression. And you survived. Not pity. Admiration. Her voice shook before she could stop it. He didn't just hurt me. He made me small. She rarely spoke like this. She rarely allowed it. But with him, the cage door didn't feel locked. It felt open, safe, watched over. He lowered his eyes, thumb brushing his ring, a habit she noticed when he was thinking deeply. Men like him don't hate weakness, he said quietly. They fear strength. Her eyes flicked to him, startled. People fear what they can't control, he continued. Especially fragile egos. Yes, she had lived under one. She studied him for a long moment. You sound like someone who's seen that before. A humorless exhale escaped him. I've seen too much. The city lights flashed across his face, revealing something rare, something raw. Regret, or maybe loss, not the kind spoken about. The kind buried. Were you always this? She looked at him, searching for the right word. Protective? No, he said softly. Only for those who deserve it. And you think I do? His eyes locked on hers, slow, deliberate, like a vow being shaped. I know you do. Her pulse stuttered. For a second she forgot to breathe, but then, his jaw tightened. His hand curled slightly, and the temperature in the car shifted again. The dangerous edge returned. Next time he speaks to you like that, he murmured, voice dropping to ice, he will learn what fear feels like. Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from the fierce devotion in his tone. You don't even know him. I don't need to. A pause. He disrespected you. That's enough. Protectiveness shouldn't feel romantic. But when it comes from someone who listens, who sees, it becomes a shelter, not a cage. Her voice was barely audible. You can't fight my battles. No, he agreed quietly. But I can stand beside you while you fight them. Everything inside her softened. A quiet, trembling surrender, not because she was weak, but because she finally felt allowed to be strong without being alone. The car slowed to a stop. Her building, he didn't move to open the door. He didn't rush her out, he just watched her, as if memorizing her presence, as if committing her breathing to memory. Isabella, her name in his voice, felt like a promise. You don't have to be small anymore. Her lips parted. A breath, a moment, a world shifting. And then, almost whispering, she replied, Maybe. I don't want to. A shadow of a smile touched his lips, the kind born not from triumph, but from understanding. Good. He didn't kiss her. He didn't touch her. He simply let her go. But his eyes followed like they weren't ready to lose sight. And in her chest, something unfamiliar bloomed. Not fear, not doubt, hope. Slow, fragile, dangerous hope. Because sometimes, hearts fall long before lips ever meet. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of morning where sunlight tries to break through clouds but never fully succeeds, leaving everything half-lit, soft. Unsure, Isabella moved through her apartment like she was still remembering how to breathe. She slept, but not deeply. She dreamed, but not painfully. His voice still lingered. You don't have to be small anymore. His jacket hung over the back of her chair like a presence, like protection personified. She hadn't returned it. Maybe she didn't want to. She touched the lapel lightly, and warmth bloomed where her fingertips rested. One jacket, one night? That shouldn't change a life. But some moments aren't loud when they break you. They're silent. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She froze. No one visited her this early. Or ever, really. She opened the door slightly. And blinked. Daniel Dot, a friend. Or someone who once wished to be more. Kind. Familiar. Safe in the way comfortable shoes are safe. Not chosen for dreams, but for routine. Hey. Daniel smiled. Breath visible in the morning chill. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check on you. Check on her. Funny how ordinary concern feels different once you've tasted a man who protects instinct. She forced a smile. Hi, yeah, I'm okay. He stepped inside casually. He always had permission, and her stomach nodded. Not because of him, but because she suddenly felt watched, in the strangest way, like somewhere in the city, someone knew she wasn't alone. Daniel noticed the jacket immediately. New? He asked, lifting a brow. No, just borrowed. He laughed lightly. Let me guess. Rich businessman. Heat flushed her cheeks. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't anywhere close to right. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, yet not unknown. Her pulse reacted before her brain did. She answered. His voice, quiet, steady, velvet with steel beneath, filled her ear. Good morning. 2 words, yet her breath caught like he'd just touched her. Morning, she whispered back. A pause. Not awkward, charged. Are you home? She hesitated. Daniel glanced her way, curious. Yes, another beat of silence. Then a shift in his tone, darker, lower. You're not alone, not a question. A fact, cold, precise, instinctive. Her heart thudded. A friend stopped by, a long exhale on the line. Not angry, calculating. A storm measuring distance to lightning. Is he standing close to you? Her knees weakened. Control wasn't his intention, but protection lived in his blood like oxygen. He's just visiting. Deep, unreadable. Her spine tingled. Open the balcony curtain. Confused, she moved to the window and pulled the drape aside, and froze. Across the street, inside a sleek black car, he sat. Dark suit, cold eyes softened only by the moment they found her. One hand on the steering wheel, other resting on his knee. Watching her building, watching for danger. Watching her, Daniel noticed her change in breathing. Everything okay? She didn't answer him. She whispered into the phone. You were watching my place? He didn't flinch, didn't hide. I was making sure you woke up safe. Possessiveness should sound heavy. But coming from him, it felt like someone finally choosing to guard what the world had once broken. Who is he? He asked quietly. A friend, the kind who wants more than friendship. Her throat tightened. Maybe he once did. Silence again, but not empty. Then quietly he asked, Do you want him too? Her chest ached. truth rising like a tide she couldn't push back. No, not hesitation, not confusion, a truth spoken with the calmness of certainty. He exhaled, something dangerous in it, but also something deeply human. Good. Daniel spoke again, interrupting the moment. Bella, I was thinking dinner, she stiffened, and across the street, in the car, the man's jaw steeled. Not rage, not jealousy like immaturity. It was possessiveness born from intention, not ownership. A quiet vow, she is not alone again. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply said, voice soft and lethal, tell him you're busy tonight. Her breath trembled. Not fear, recognition. She turned to Daniel. I can't, I have plans. Daniel blinked, confused and disappointed. With who? Her lips parted, barely a whisper. Someone who sees me. Across the street, his gaze softened, the quietest victory, carved from patience and instinct. Not force. Daniel nodded slowly, stepping back toward the door. I just hope he deserves you. She didn't answer, not because she doubted, but because her pulse told her he already did. Once Daniel left, she returned to the window. He spoke first. Come down. Her smile trembled. Why? A breath. Controlled but warm, because I need to see the woman who just chose me. Her heart fell, beautifully, recklessly. I'm on my way. She hung up, hands shaking, not from fear, but awakening. Because today, jealousy didn't control him. It revealed him, and she wasn't running. She was walking toward him. The elevator doors slid open, and the lobby swallowed her in warm gold light and marble silence. He stood waiting near the entrance, hands in pockets, posture relaxed, but presence impossible to ignore. Some men enter a room. He arrived. He occupied. He shifted gravity. And when his eyes found her, his expression changed. Barely, just enough to see the storm inside calm for a heartbeat. He didn't rush toward her, didn't touch her. But the way he looked at her felt like a hand at her waist, guiding her closer without moving an inch. You came, he murmured. She breathed out a soft laugh. You asked, his lips twitched. Not a full smile, something more private, more dangerous, something meant only for her. He opened the car door silently. No dramatic gesture, just respect disguised in quiet habit. She slipped in, and he followed, the door thudding shut like a secret sealing itself. The city lights streaked by as they drove. She felt him watching, occasionally turning his gaze back to her like checking she was still real. You didn't have to wait outside my building, she whispered. I didn't wait. A pause. I watched, she swallowed. That's different? Yes. His voice was low, steady. Waiting is passive. Watching means I was ready. For what? For anything. Her pulse fluttered. Not fear, recognition. Someone standing guard because he chooses to. The car slowed outside a quiet cafe. Soft jazz spilling through the door. Warm lights glowing like a place untouched by chaos. Not a luxury club. Not a private suite. A small, peaceful corner of the world. You brought me here? She asked, surprised. Peace is rare, he said softly. I thought you might need some. He wasn't wrong. Inside, whispers followed them. Not loud, but noticeable. People recognized power even without knowing its name. A waiter nearly tripped taking their order, eyes darting between them like trying to solve a puzzle. Why her? Why him with her? Isabella felt the pressure, the curious stares, the weight of silent questions. He noticed instantly. His hand didn't touch hers, but slid across the table. Stopping close enough, their fingers felt heat, a silent shield, a quiet claim. Then, calm and cold enough to frost glass, he looked around the room once. And every watching eye dropped. No threat, no words, just presence. He turned back to her, voice softer again, like he only had two modes, gentle for her, lethal for everyone else. You don't like being stared at. It wasn't a question. It feels... She searched for the word. Exposing, he nodded slowly. I know the feeling. She raised an eyebrow. You? People avoid looking at you. Not always. His gaze lowered, almost distant. Once, I didn't have enough power to make them. That struck something inside her. Not pity. Understanding. People aren't born untouchable. They become it. A table nearby whispered again, just loud enough to catch. Who is she? Girlfriend? She doesn't look like his type. Her throat tightened. Before she could react, he spoke. Not loudly, not harshly, but clear enough that every soul within reach stilled. She's not my type. A pause, And then his eyes met hers, soft, devastating. She's the one who ruins every type I thought I had. She forgot how to breathe. Not possession, not control, recognition. A man used to owning rooms declaring he didn't choose her. She happened to him. The waiter returned, hands slightly shaky, and set their drinks down. His fingers brushed hers, by accident, flustered, and she flinched at the sudden contact. Before she registered it, the man beside her leaned forward, eyes locking on the waiter with quiet steel. Be careful, no anger, no raise in tone. Just a truth that felt like a shadow crossing the sun. She gently touched his sleeve, not pulling, just grounding. I'm okay. He looked at her, searched her face, and slowly relaxed back into his chair. Not because he feared consequences, but because her hand calmed a man the world feared. Sometimes protection looks like overreaction, she whispered. Sometimes it looks like instinct. He countered softly. And which is this? His jaw flexed, eyes deep and unreadable. This is me learning how to protect someone without making them feel owned. Her breath trembled. Respect. Possessiveness. Control. But only over himself. Sexy. In the way power looks when it kneels to emotion. She leaned slightly closer. And how's that going? He exhaled, slow, like she knocked air out of him without touching him. I've never been patient, he murmured. But for you, I'm trying. Her heartbeat stumbled. Sometimes intimacy isn't lips. It's restraint. He could touch her. He didn't. He could pull her close. He wouldn't. And somehow, that self-control felt more intimate than hands ever could. Tonight, the world saw her with him. But more importantly, and that was the most dangerous kind of devotion there is. The storm outside had quieted, but inside him, a different storm brewed. Slow, controlled, dangerous. We stood in the quiet of his private study. Books lined the walls like silent witnesses. Soft amber lamps painted shadows across his face, shadows that didn't make him look cruel, just intense, unreasonably intense. He loosened his cufflinks, one, then the other, and the simple movement felt like a command to my heartbeat. I don't like repeating myself, he said softly, voice velvet wrapped around steel. But earlier, you said something. He stepped close. Not touching, not yet, just near enough that I felt the heat of him. You told me, he murmured, that you don't fear me. His eyes dropped briefly, to my lips. Not lustful, hungry in a way that felt like worship and warning at once. I swallowed. I don't. A pause. Not silence, but breath crashing into breath. His fingers brushed a stray curl from my face. Slow, deliberate, like he was tracing temptation, not hair. You should, he whispered. But there was nothing threatening in his tone. Only conflict. Only the weight of a man who had walls made of iron and suddenly hated every brick. And yet, I answered, voice barely a breath, I don't. His jaw clenched. Not anger. Control. Dangerous, unraveling control. He leaned in, lips grazing my temple. Not kissing. Just breathing me in. No one looks at me the way you do. A confession disguised as a warning. My pulse thundered. And how do I look at you? His hand slid, slow, to the small of my back. Not pulling me in, just resting there, warm, steady, claiming nothing, and claiming everything. Like I have something worth saving, he said. For a second, the world held its breath. I lifted my chin. Meeting his eyes, steady, sure. Maybe you do. That broke him. Not into danger, but into softness he didn't want me to see. His thumb brushed my lower lip, so gentle it almost hurt. But just when I leaned the slightest bit closer, he stepped back. Not rejection, restraint, self-preservation wrapped around desire. We stop here, he murmured. I don't rush things I want. A shiver ran through me, not from cold, but from the certainty in his tone. What if I don't want to stop? I whispered. He smiled. Slow, dark, devastating. Then that's exactly why we do. He walked past me, pausing at the door. Because when I take you, he said quietly, it won't be halfway. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me in a room full of shadows, my pulse racing like I'd been kissed, even though he hadn't truly touched me. And somehow, that felt even more dangerous, even more intimate, even more inevitable. The city buzzed faintly outside, but inside the boutique cafe, it felt like the world had narrowed down to a single heartbeat, hers. Isabella sipped her coffee, trying to focus on the papers in front of her, but every few seconds her eyes flicked to the door, She knew he wouldn't be far, and he wasn't. He entered quietly, unnoticed by most, a shadow in a tailored suit, but every movement commanded attention, not for anyone else. For her. He scanned the room in one smooth motion. Then his eyes landed on her. The other man was already there, casual, confident, smiling like he belonged. He had been talking to her while she absent-mindedly laughed, gesturing with her hand. The moment Cairo's gaze caught mine, something shifted. Not anger. Not fear. Possession. Every inch of air between us crackled, and I felt it in my bones. He didn't move immediately, just watched, quiet, controlled, until the other man laughed at something she said, leaning in slightly closer than was necessary. Then he stepped forward, ever so slightly, enough to make his presence undeniable. It wasn't a glare. It wasn't confrontation. It was warning. She looked up, startled, and their eyes met. "You're here early," she whispered. "I always am," he murmured, not to the man, not to anyone, to her. His fingers twitched at his side, like he was restraining himself, not for the other man's sake, but for hers. The other man noticed. He glanced at Cairo, a subtle hesitation crossing his face. A warning he didn't understand. "You didn't tell me you were popular," Cairo said softly, almost to himself. Yet his voice carried the weight of something more. Something she recognized. Immediately, a low heat ran up her spine. Jealousy, possessiveness. Something she hadn't seen in him until now. Her heart raced, part fear, part thrill. Cairo leaned in just enough that she caught the scent of him. Leather, spice, something darker and warmer she couldn't name. Her fingers brushed the edge of her coffee cup, gripping it tightly, and she realized her hands were shaking. "Isabella," he said quietly. Not loud, not angry, not a threat, just his voice low and intimate, reserved only for her. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. Yes, but it wasn't. His eyes flicked to the man again, and the faintest tightening of his jaw, the almost imperceptible clench of his hand, said more than words ever could. The man excused himself shortly after, leaving a faint awkward silence behind. She exhaled slowly, tension rolling off her in waves, and looked at Cairo. Why do I feel like that was about me?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved closer, just a half step, just enough that the warmth radiating from him brushed her arm. "Because it is," he murmured. "And I don't like anyone making you smile like that unless I'm the reason." Her breath hitched. Not from fear, not entirely from desire, but from the sharp electric truth in his words. He didn't touch her face. He didn't pull her in. Yet somehow, the mere nearness, the tone of his voice, the subtle dominance he carried, made the room shrink until only the two of them existed. "I didn't mean," she began. He silenced her with a soft shake of his head. "Don't explain. Just remember this. Anyone who comes near you without my approval, I will make them regret it, not a threat. A promise. One that made her pulse thunder like a drum, hard and fast, a rhythm only he could hear. She smiled faintly, nervous, trembling. "I'm glad you're here." He didn't smile. Not openly, but his eyes softened ever so slightly, and she knew he felt it too. The closeness, the pull, the spark that was becoming impossible to ignore. His hand hovered near hers, inches away, careful, patient. She didn't move it, couldn't, because some touches don't need contact to ignite a fire. And tonight, as they left the cafe together, walking side by side through the city streets, she realized one thing, because he wasn't just jealous, he cared. And in his world of danger and control, care was the most intimate thing anyone could offer. The rain had started again, soft and persistent, drumming against the windows of the high-rise where they now stood. Inside, the world was quiet. Outside, the city blurred into lights and puddles, distorted, dancing reflections that mimicked the storm inside her chest. He didn't speak at first. He simply watched, not like a predator, not like someone waiting, but like someone holding his breath, waiting for a fragile truth to unfold. "You're shivering," he murmured, and the words didn't question. They stated, observed, cared. She realized she was. Her fingers wrapped around her arms, trying to trap warmth she didn't have. "Here," he said softly, shrugging off his tailored jacket. Before she could refuse, he draped it over her shoulders. The fabric smelled of him. Leather, smoke, faint spice. And for a moment, she forgot how to breathe. "Better?" he asked quietly, just above a whisper. "Yes," she breathed, almost too softly. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Their eyes met, and that single moment carried everything. The heat, the tension, the unspoken promise. He stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, not pushing, not demanding, just reducing the space between them until their breaths began to mix. Her pulse raced. Every instinct screamed to pull back. And every part of her wanted to lean in. "You don't have to," she whispered, unsure of the words she wanted to finish. "I know," he murmured, a faint smirk touching his lips, betraying the tension he kept coiled inside. And then, just a fraction of an inch, his lips brushed hers. Not a kiss, not yet. A ghost of a kiss, light as air, soft as a whisper. Her heart skipped. His hand lifted, almost brushing her cheek, stopping just short. A promise, a question, a restraint. "You feel that?" he asked, voice husky, close enough to send shivers down her spine. "Yes," she admitted. "Good," he murmured, eyes darkening slightly, not with anger, but with an intensity that made her knees weak. He leaned just a little closer, the tension palpable. Her lips barely touched his again, this time lingering for a heartbeat longer, enough to make her breath hitch, enough to make the air between them hum with electricity. Her hands twitched at her sides, unsure whether to rest on him or pull back. "I should stop," he whispered, almost apologetically, yet there was steel in his voice. "I don't rush what I want." And somehow that only made her want him more. "You're impossible," she breathed. "I know," he said softly, a shadow of a smile in his expression. "But you make being impossible feel easy." Their eyes locked again. Not just attraction, not just desire, recognition, possession without force. Intimacy without crossing the line. Her chest rose and fell, heart hammering, as the rain outside drummed a soft rhythm. "You're mine," he said quietly, not in anger, not in acclaim, just in truth. She swallowed hard, heat rising to her cheeks. "I think I might want that." And in that moment the room didn't exist. The city didn't exist. It was only them, a slow, dangerous, inevitable pull, restrained, intense, and impossibly sexy. No walls, no hesitation. Just two people orbiting a fire that had finally been sparked. And when he pulled back just enough to let her breathe, just enough to leave her wanting, she realized, some sparks burn brighter when they're restrained. And some kisses, even when only a whisper, can set your soul on fire. The morning light was soft, but not soft enough to dull the memory of last night. Isabella felt it in every muscle, the brush of his lips, the heat of his presence lingering like a storm. Her pulse hadn't slowed, her thoughts hadn't stopped. She tried to focus on her work, the documents, the calls, the mundane tasks. But the city outside seemed distant, unreal. And then he appeared. Not at her apartment, not at her office, but at the coffee shop she visited every morning. He stood across the street first, leaning against his sleek black car, eyes scanning the windows until they landed on her, not looking at her like a man seeing a woman, looking at her like he had staked a claim on her very heartbeat. Every passerby seemed invisible, every honking car muted. He stepped forward, slow, purposeful. The moment he crossed the threshold into the shop, the air changed. "Good morning," he murmured, voice low, smooth, calm, yet so dangerous in its control. Isabella looked up from her cup, startled at the intensity of his gaze. "Morning," she whispered, heart stammering. His eyes scanned the shop, casual almost, until they landed on a man lingering nearby. Too close, too interested. His jaw tightened ever so slightly. Not a glare, not a confrontation. A subtle, lethal warning that only Isabella noticed. "You okay?" he asked softly, leaning down just enough that his hand brushed the small of her back as he passed. "Yes," she murmured. Her voice trembled slightly. Not from fear, from the awareness of his possessive energy. He didn't speak again. He simply took the seat beside her, close enough that she felt the warmth radiating from him, but careful enough to leave her space. "Don't let anyone distract you today," he murmured quietly. "And if someone tries, remember I'm here." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't arrogance. It was instinct, protective, intense. She met his gaze, half amusement, half nervousness. "You make it hard to do anything on my own." "I like that," he said, soft but deadly. "Because you're mine." Her stomach tightened. It wasn't just the words. It was the quiet confidence behind them. The subtle possessiveness that didn't cage her. but surrounded her. The man at the counter glanced their way again, lingering on her in curiosity. Cairo's hand moved subtly, resting on the edge of the table, fingers curling slightly, a shadow of control that even a glance could feel. The man noticed, and instantly withdrew. She blinked, half in awe, half in disbelief. "You scare people without even touching them," she whispered. He smirked slightly, not breaking the intensity of his gaze. Some things don't need hands to be felt. Her breath caught. Some things, she realized, weren't just felt. They were owned. And somehow, being claimed this way didn't frighten her. It made her want him even more. The barista delivered her latte, unaware of the tension coiling in the corner of the shop. He took a small sip of his own coffee, eyes never leaving her face. "I don't like anyone looking at you the wrong way," he admitted softly. "Not even strangers." Isabella's cheeks warmed. "You make it sound like I'm fragile." "You are," he said simply, "but in the best way." Her pulse thundered in her ears. Not from fear, not from panic, from the truth of being seen. Fully, wholly, dangerously. The moment stretched between them, unbroken. His proximity, his quiet control, his possessive energy, it all burned gently in her chest. Not restraint against desire. Restraint in desire, because he wanted her entirely, and he would wait. Wait for the moment when it would matter most. And she realized, softly, terrifyingly, she didn't want him to wait. City evenings had a rhythm. Heels on pavement, lights, bleeding gold across glass, strangers brushing past without faces. Tonight, that rhythm felt different, sharper, charged, because she wasn't alone. Cairo walked beside her, not touching, not claiming, but his presence wrapped around her like the most expensive armor money couldn't buy. People noticed. Not just him, them, two worlds colliding in the open, her softness and warmth, his danger and silence, and the city held its breath. They reached a rooftop lounge, classy, slow jazz spilling through velvet curtains, chandeliers glimmering like captured starlight. Her co-workers were already there, chatting, laughing, unaware of the storm that had walked in with her. "Isabella," one called, then froze when they saw him. Not fear, awe, uncertainty, a ripple in the air. Cairo nodded politely, controlled, unreadable, not threatening, just impossible to ignore. "Friends?" he asked quietly, leaning near her ear. "Yes." His jaw eased. Approval, not control over her life, protection over her space. They walked in, and for the first time, he wasn't the one watching the room. She was. Watching him. How he stood slightly behind her, letting her lead. How his eyes scanned exits out of habit. How he didn't speak unless addressed. Yet everyone felt him there. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence that rearranges the room. A coworker, a man, approached, smiling too wide. "Isabella, didn't know you were bringing company." Cairo reached for nothing, but somehow his presence sharpened. Protective, silent, deadly polite. "I didn't realize I needed permission," she said softly. The man laughed awkwardly, shifting. "She's our star," he told Cairo. "We take good care of her around here." Cairo smiled, a slow, quiet, dangerously calm curve of lips. "I appreciate that," he said. "But you won't need to." The man blinked, unsure if it was a joke. It wasn't. His hand gently pressed the back of her chair, not pushing, not trapping, just there. A silent vow. "I'm here. No one harms what I protect." The coworker left quickly, and she stared up at him, heart thundering. "You can't just say things like that," she whispered. "Why?" "Because they'll think that you're mine." Soft words. No arrogance, no force. Just truth hovering between them. She swallowed. "I haven't said that yet." His eyes softened, a storm easing. Not because it lost its power, but because it chose to. That's why I haven't touched you, he murmured. Not until you say it. Not until you want it. Heat rolled through her chest. Not lust alone, but something deeper, frightening, beautiful. He turned slightly, voice low. You choose who you belong to. Not me. Not them. Respect in every syllable. Possessiveness, but earned, not taken. Her fingers trembled. I'm choosing. His breath stopped, almost undetectable. What did you say? I'm choosing, she whispered, gaze burning into his. But I need you to be patient. He exhaled slowly, a controlled release of tension like a gun lowered. I have been patient, he said, stepping back just enough to give her space. And I will stay patient. Then his voice dropped, silk wrapping steel. But don't expect me to pretend I don't want you. A subtle shiver rolled through her. Desire, fear, excitement, all tangled like threads too tight to separate. The wind from the terrace brushed her hair. He reached up, paused, then tucked a strand behind her ear with slow, reverent care. One touch, barely there, yet electric. You tell me when, he whispered, and I'll move the world to stand where you want me. Not a command, a promise. Her lips parted, breath shaking. I might say soon. His eyes darkened, not lust alone, but devotion disguised as danger. Then, the world should start getting ready. The streets were slick with rain, reflecting neon lights like liquid fire. Isabella walked beside him, her umbrella useless against the chill in the air. But he didn't seem to notice the cold. He did notice her, every shiver, every tremble in her hands, every subtle hesitation. He felt it before she did, and like always, he was ready. Are you cold? He asked softly. No, she lied, a small smile tugging at her lips. He didn't reply immediately. He just glanced at her, eyes narrowing slightly, not with suspicion, but with concern. You are, he said finally. Your hands are cold. Before she could protest, his gloves were off, and he took her hands gently in his. Heat spread through her fingers, not just from his touch, but from the undeniable awareness in his gaze. You need to stop pretending, he murmured. Not with me. She swallowed, heart hammering. I'm fine. Fine doesn't look like this, he countered, thumb brushing her knuckles softly. Not to me. Her chest tightened. He had a way of speaking that didn't just acknowledge her feelings. He wrapped around them, held them, made them his responsibility without ever demanding control. A figure stepped out from the shadows ahead, someone too familiar, too wrong. You, the man sneered. Thought I'd find you alone. Her pulse quickened. But before fear could fully take hold, Cairo stepped forward, standing between her and the stranger. Not a threat, a wall, not anger, resolve. You need to leave, he said, calm, deadly. The man laughed nervously, clearly unsettled by the quiet intensity in his voice. You don't scare me. He stepped closer. Cairo mirrored him, an invisible line drawn in the night. Not yet, Cairo said softly, his eyes locking on Isabella's. Because I protect what's mine. And that includes you. The man's jaw tightened. And then, slowly, he stepped back, retreating into the night. Isabella's breath hitched. She hadn't realized she'd been holding it. He turned to her, softening immediately. See, he murmured. No one gets to touch you unless I say it's okay. Her hands trembled in his, warmth radiating not just from the gloves he'd removed, but from him. Him fully, intensely, entirely. You don't have to do this, she whispered. You don't have to be so protective. He shook his head slowly, gaze unwavering. I don't get a choice, he said softly. You belong in my life, and I don't let anyone harm what I choose. It wasn't possessive in the cruel way she'd known before. It was possessive because he cared, because he valued her, in a way that left her breathless. She reached up, brushing her fingers lightly over his cheek. It's frightening, she admitted, but in the best way. He leaned into the touch, just slightly, as if memorizing the feel of her hand against his skin. I've never been patient, he murmured. But I'll wait for you, always. Her heart swelled, and for the first time, Fear didn't linger. It was replaced with something heavier, something dangerous, and yet utterly irresistible. Trust. A gust of wind blew the umbrella away, drenching them both. She laughed, and he laughed quietly too. A soft, low sound, impossible to resist. And then, just for a moment, they leaned closer. Not kissing, not yet, but near enough that their breaths mingled, enough that the heat between them sparked like fire over wet asphalt. Soon, she whispered. Soon. He didn't need to speak. He simply nodded, eyes dark with desire tempered by respect. Soon, he echoed, because sometimes the most intense loyalty and love doesn't need words. It only needs presence. And tonight, his presence was all she could feel, and all she ever wanted. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that felt alive, heavy, waiting for something unspoken. Isabella leaned against the counter, feeling the last drops of rain soak her hair. The city outside blurred into streaks of neon light, casting soft, shifting patterns across the room. Cairo stood by the door, watching her, not judging, not demanding, just observing. You're wet, he murmured, voice low and warm. I don't mind, she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His eyes softened just slightly, the way storms ease when the first rain finally falls. He stepped closer. Slow, deliberate, not hurried, not predatory. Her pulse caught in her throat. He reached out, letting his fingers brush her shoulder, a fleeting contact that sent heat rushing through her. Not a claim, not a demand, just presence. I need to be close to you, he whispered, his breath brushing her ear. She swallowed. Her chest rose and fell, heart hammering in a rhythm that matched the rain outside. Closer? She asked softly, almost a whisper. He nodded, never breaking eye contact, and slowly, cautiously, wrapped his arms around her waist. Not a hug. Not a possessive hold. A careful, protective embrace. The kind that says, I am here. You are safe. I am yours, if you want me. Her hands instinctively moved to his chest, feeling the hard line of his body beneath the fabric of his shirt. She didn't push him away. She didn't pull him closer. She simply existed against him, letting the closeness speak. He lowered his head slightly, resting his forehead against hers. You're trembling, he murmured. I'm okay, she breathed, but the truth quivered in her words. I know, he whispered, pressing just enough against her to offer warmth and strength. I feel it too. Time slowed. The city noise, the neon blur, the rain. Everything disappeared. She tilted her head slightly. Their breaths mingled, soft and unhurried. I don't know if I should, she whispered. He cupped her face gently, thumb brushing her cheek. You don't have to decide yet, he said softly. Not tonight, not ever, just let me be here. She closed her eyes, leaning slightly into his touch. A shiver ran through her, not from cold, not from fear, from the intensity of being seen, understood, and protected at once. He moved slightly, his lips brushing the edge of hers. Not a kiss, not yet, just a whisper of intention. Her lips parted instinctively, a soft exhale against him. Her heart hammered, the warmth of him, the safety in him, the desire that lingered. It was almost unbearable. I want to, she whispered. Want to what? He asked, voice low near her lips. To be close, like this, she said softly. He nodded, smiling faintly, eyes dark with emotion. Then we'll take it slow, always slow. He pressed a gentle kiss to her temple, lingering, soft, intimate, a promise, not a demand, not a rush. Her hands slid around his back, holding him just as he held her, carefully, reverently, entirely. The rain outside eased, tapping softly on the windows, a rhythm that matched the steady beat of two hearts discovering something they hadn't dared to name before. In the quiet, in the warmth, in the shared breath, they both realized this closeness wasn't just desire. It wasn't just need. It was trust, and trust, in its slow-consuming way, was the most intimate thing of all. The night was calm, almost fragile, as though the city itself held its breath. Isabella stood on the balcony, the wind teasing her hair, lights below like a river of stars. Cairo stepped close behind her, his presence a shadow that wrapped around her without smothering. You've been quiet, he murmured, voice low, almost a whisper. I'm thinking, she admitted, leaning slightly against the railing. About us? He asked, not turning to look at her, letting the space between them thrum with tension. She swallowed. Yes. He closed the distance slowly, hand brushing her waist in the softest touch, just enough to anchor her to him. His thumb traced gentle circles along her side. A quiet claim. A subtle promise. You don't have to say anything you're not ready for, he said, voice gentle but firm. Not tonight. Not ever. Just let me be here with you. Her chest tightened. Being this close to him was intoxicating, dangerous, and yet entirely safe. She turned to face him, her fingers brushing against his chest, feeling the steady, powerful heartbeat beneath his shirt. I've never, she began, voice trembling slightly, felt like this before. Not with anyone. His eyes softened, dark and intense, locking onto hers. You make me want things I've never allowed myself, he admitted, voice low, deliberate. Things I didn't know I could feel. Her breath caught. And I don't want to run from it, she whispered. He leaned closer, the air between them crackling with unspoken emotion. Good, he murmured, because I'm not letting you go. Not now. Not ever. Her fingers rested on his jaw, tilting his face toward hers. Their lips hovered inches apart. Not a kiss yet, just the promise of one. His hands framed her waist, steady, protective. And in that pause, time seemed suspended. Do you really mean that? She asked softly, eyes searching his. I do, he replied, voice thick with something raw, almost vulnerable. You're mine in the way that matters. Heart, soul, everything I can't give to anyone else, and I want you to know that. Her lips trembled, heart hammering, a mixture of fear, excitement, and longing. She nodded slowly, letting the truth sink in. And I want you, she admitted. Completely. But I need time. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, lingering there like a touch meant to be remembered. Then we take our time, he said softly. Slowly, always, every step together. The tension between them grew electric, but neither rushed. It wasn't about passion alone, it was about trust. Possession without control, love without fear. Finally, after a long pause, he leaned down, lips brushing hers lightly. Not urgent, not demanding, just a gentle, electric connection. A kiss that spoke of desire, protection, and promise. Her hands moved to his shoulders, holding him close, feeling the warmth, the strength, the intensity of a man who had never let anyone in. Until now. And she didn't pull away. She let herself melt into the moment, savoring the tension and the tenderness entwined. When they finally parted, their foreheads touched, breaths mingling, hearts pounding in sync. I'll never let you go, he whispered. I know, she replied, a soft smile lighting her face. And I don't want you to. Outside, the city lights shimmered like a witness to something rare. Intense, dangerous, beautiful. For the first time she realized, this was more than desire. More than obsession, more than protection, it was love. Slow burn, passionate, possessive, and fiercely respectful. And for both of them, it had finally arrived. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room in golden light. Isabella stirred in bed, still wrapped in the warmth of the night. The sheets smelled faintly of him, leather, spice, something impossibly familiar. She smiled softly, remembering the intensity of last night. Cairo was awake too, sitting near the window, the city stretching below them like a map of possibilities. He wasn't touching her, not yet, but his presence alone was enough. You're awake, he murmured, voice low, private. I could say the same, she whispered. Turning to meet his eyes, he smiled faintly, that half smile that always made her pulse race. Sleep well? Better than ever, she admitted. He leaned back, eyes scanning the skyline before returning to her. Good, he said. Because I've been thinking. She tilted her head, curious. About? Him, always him. About how I want you in my life, he said, quiet but firm. Not just tonight, not just this week. Every day I can make it. Her heartbeat quickened. You don't have to say that, she whispered. Not if it's just words. He shook his head. They're not words, he said softly. They're a promise. The warmth in his tone wrapped around her, gentle and protective. No threats, no possessiveness masking affection, just honesty. She rose slowly, walking toward him. His eyes followed, unwavering, steady, full of something that made her knees weak. "I want the same," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I want all of it." He rose, closing the distance between them. Not a rush, not a claim, just presence. Solid, grounding, electric. And then, finally, he kissed her. Soft, slow, intimate. A kiss that wasn't just desire. It was trust. It was respect. It was the culmination of everything they had felt. Every stolen moment, every heartbeat spent wanting one another. She melted into it, knowing, finally, that this was safe. That this was theirs. And that nothing could undo what they'd found. When they pulled back, their foreheads rested together. Breath mingling, heartbeats in sync. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I already am," she replied. And it was true, in body, heart, and soul. The storm outside had passed, but inside them, a fire burned, steady, unwavering, and eternal. Weeks passed, and life moved with the quiet rhythm of new beginnings. The city remained as chaotic and unpredictable as ever, but for Isabella and Cairo, the world had shifted. They walked through it together, side by side, yet entirely aware of the invisible tether that bound them. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word reminded them they had found each other. One evening, on a balcony overlooking the glittering skyline, Cairo took her hand. Not because she needed protection. She was strong, brilliant, unbreakable. But because he wanted her to feel it, that he would always be there. "I've been thinking," he murmured, voice low, intimate, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "About us, about everything we've been through." Her heart fluttered. "And?" she asked softly. "And I realized," he continued, gaze locking on hers, dark and molten, "I don't just want you tonight, or tomorrow. I want forever with you." Tears welled in her eyes, not of fear, not of doubt, but of recognition of something rare, something worth guarding. "I want that too," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. "I've never felt anything like this before, but I know it's real." He smiled, slow, genuine, a predator softened by love. "And I'll spend every day proving it," he said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, "protecting you, loving you, wanting you, always." She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. The steady beat of his heart was like a promise she could feel in her bones. "I don't need perfection," she murmured. "I just need you. You already have me," he whispered back. "And I'm not going anywhere." The city lights stretched endlessly below, but for them, the world had become something smaller, safer, infinite in its intimacy, and in that quiet, private eternity, Isabella realized, love isn't just passion. It isn't just desire. It isn't even just protection. It's trust, patience, and choosing each other every day. He pressed a kiss to her temple, soft, possessive in the gentlest way, and whispered, "This is only the beginning." And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. Because with him, the fire didn't burn dangerously. It burned beautifully, steady, warm, and forever theirs. The storm had ended. The world could watch. But she knew, and he knew, that their love was untouchable. If a single moment, a single heartbeat, can change two lives forever, then imagine the story waiting ahead. A love born in shadows. A soul touched by danger and destiny. A kiss powerful enough to ruin worlds and rebuild hearts from ashes. If her tears touched you, if his devotion shook you, if you felt that pull, that quiet whisper of fate, then don't just watch their story, become part of it. Tap subscribe and ring the bell, so you never miss the next heartbeat, the next collision of love and destiny. Here on BRD Stories Hub, because here, love isn't gentle. Love chooses souls meant to collide. And once it begins, it never lets go. Subscribe now. Your next breathless chapter is waiting.